Hello everybody. Welcome to episode 22 of the Halving Report with myself, Brad Mines Crypto. The price of Bitcoin is approximately 6,800 American dollars. Timestamp that at 9:30 p.m. on April 4th, 2020. There's approximately 38 days left until the next Bitcoin halving, according to BitcoinBlockHalf.com. Today's episode is a very special one as we have the Chief Operating Officer of Bitbuy Co-Founder Jordan Anderson. Bitbuy is one of the largest and most reputable cryptocurrency exchanges in Canada. Thanks for coming on to the show, Jordan.
Have you been affected by COVID-19 pandemic personally at all?
Personally, I actually lost my great aunt from COVID-19, Ruth. So rest in peace. Just
very sorry to hear. Very sorry to hear this.
Yeah, she got it, and 2 days later she passed away. So tough times for sure for the family. A little indirect, right? Like it wasn't my actual aunt, my great aunt, but nonetheless, always sad to see that happen.
Yeah, no doubt. Did she have any underlying conditions or anything like that? Or
yeah, she did have respiratory troubles in the past. Okay. She was, in her 80s and so forth. So kind of fit that profile of someone who's at high risk.
Right. Super sorry to hear about that. What about on the business side of things? I know Bitbuy is still fully operational from what I see. Is there been any limitations on that, or have you guys all kind of worked remotely from the beginning?
Yeah, exactly. So, we have office space here in Toronto, and we kind of actually got ahead of this thing. So before there was any official lockdowns or official government, protocols that came into place, we told everybody that we're going to be closing the office and everybody can be working from home, and we're set up to function very well that way. So in that sense, we've been very lucky to be able to execute well on the business in that.
It's definitely advantageous to be able to perform your duties from a remote location or being at home as well.
I just think it's incredible these days, all the communication tools we have. Like here at Bitbuy, we're using Slack, we're using Google Hangouts, we're using a lot of great tools, beyond email to be able to really communicate effectively. And we've actually ramped up our conference calls for the entire team, and so I was reading
an article today that Zoom has been hacked, or it's being a big target right now. Have you experienced any delays or anything like that, or anybody hacking into your conversations?
We haven't been using Zoom, so we're lucky in that sense. We're using another conferencing tool.
Okay. Well, before we dive too deep into crypto, I wanted to ask you a little bit about yourself and your history. In your bio, on your Twitter bio, it says that you're a former Yahoo employee. I just want to ask you, what was your role with them?
Yeah, great question. So originally Toronto native, I went to Western University where I studied business in my undergraduate degree. Came back to the city back in 2012 after graduating, and was looking to get into sort of that next hot thing. I had always been very sales oriented. Like I had ran my own painting business throughout university, and so I was looking for these charged up sales organizations, and I found back in 2012 a company that was reselling Google online advertising. It was actually a division of Rogers, a startup division. We were selling it for small, medium-sized businesses. So I got involved with that, did that for a couple of years. That was fantastic. They had all these amazing incentives. I won trips around the world to like Hawaii and Arizona, paid for by Google. And then the next jump for me was to go over to Yahoo. They just recruited me, offered me a fantastic package. And I went over there and I basically rebuilt their mid-market division in Canada over the course of 3 years, leading into the Verizon acquisition, in which Verizon came in and bought Yahoo for $1 billion. And so we basically got swallowed up, merged with AOL offices, moved offices, did that for another 6 months till I couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't really a fan of the post-acquisition scenario. And I had a yearning to get involved in startups. And so I had originally gotten into crypto, co-founding Insta-BT back in 2014 with Adam Goldman, and it was a side project. And so, it was sort of a perfect storm for me where I kind of wanted to get out of the corporate game, get into a startup. And I had this crypto opportunity with Adam to get back involved in Bitbuy in late 2017.
I read in your recent Q&A that it says your cryptocurrency experience dates back to Insta-BT, which, what would you say, 2014?
Yeah, so that's actually where I got this t-shirt that I just showed you I'm wearing, Haters Gonna Hate, back at the Bitcoin Expo in 2014. Insta-BT was just an easy way for Canadians to buy half a Bitcoin, which at that time was only worth a couple $100 online, instant settlement. You go and put your wallet in, and then you would essentially pay by Interact Online, which is deprecated now. And you would buy that Bitcoin and immediately settle and send to that wallet. So very simple app. And that was our foray into Bitcoin back in 2014.
Now, was that kind of a transition into Bitbuy, or is Insta-BT still an operation?
No, exactly. That's exactly what it was. It was like Bitbuy 0.1 version.
Okay. That makes sense. Now you moved on. You're Chief Operating Officer at Bitbuy. So what are some of the challenges in being in your role? You look over sales, marketing, customer experience.
One thing, that I've found over the years is like, you got to have great people sort of leading up those divisions. Like, we have excellent people passionate about digital currency and Bitcoin within the customer service roles and the marketing roles. And so having that sort of team of people that I work with is really, I think, what's helped us be successful.
And how do you go about finding your talent? Do you find it hard to find people in this space that are good at what they do?
I got really lucky on the marketing side, because at Yahoo, we were heavily focused on performance marketing, and that's really what we excelled at when we were working there. So one of my team members from the division over there actually came on board to help with marketing a few months after I had left there. So I brought him in. So I was able to bring people in from former walks of life. And over time, you find people that are just attracted to the space and that passion sort of, I think, for the space and for the goals of the company are what attracts those people to come here and really give it their all. And when people work hard and they're passionate, that's when the company will perform well.
I was just looking at your Instagram page. Did you recently got married?
Yeah, man. I actually did. Yeah.
Oh, well, Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah.
I guess you did it right at the right time.
Yeah, I got really lucky with timing. Like, I just got married at the beginning of March, and I think we had our wedding 1 week later. We would have been in some serious trouble. So kind of just got married in the nick of time now, and now my wife and I are in quarantine together.
That's super lucky timing. Yeah. And now you said you finished Western in 2012. You said, I would wonder. Yeah. I'm curious how old you are.
Yeah. So I'm in my early 30s now, and so I finished back in 2012. And so I've had, a number of years of work experience. Like, I'm kind of like a decade into my career here. Finished Western in my early 20s, and now I'm in my early 30s.
Also, in your Q&A that I was reading, you were talking about fear around inflation with the quantitative easing going on in the U.S. and Canada right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that, Brad, because I was listening to some of your podcasts just to get a feel for some of the content that you like to talk about. And I noticed that that's been a big topic for you, is just what's happening lately, COVID, the crisis we're in, and what it all means for Bitcoin, digital currency, and so forth.
Yeah, exactly. I think I tried touching on the most important topics that I think people should be aware of. And you say more people are actually becoming interested in Bitcoin because of all this. So I feel like I share some of the same sentiment around this with them and you. What would be the best argument you've heard against Bitcoin store value proposition, or just against Bitcoin in general?
There's obviously a lot of the hardcore Bitcoin maximalists who really believe in the store value proposition, but at the end of the day, that's not what's going to be able to bring this space to the next level. Like, we need the motherfucking mass adoption. So how do we get there? Well, we have to make Bitcoin more appealing as a actual form of currency and money to all these people. That's what's going to take it to the next level. So with that being said, that I think that it not being a viable way to transact for goods and services right now is the argument sort of against Bitcoin and its ability to scale to 1 billion people.
So you're saying that the requirement is mass adoption for Bitcoin to go where people in the space think is going.
Yeah, I mean, like, how do we get the next 100 million people to own Bitcoin, even if it's, to stack sats, to have a wallet, to use it, to hold it? Like, how does that happen? Like, what does that look like? Right. I think, like, because those questions are so hard to answer at this point, that's the biggest detractor of Bitcoin in of itself.
Well, let me ask you then, what makes Bitcoin valuable to you?
So obviously Bitcoin, for most people, understand that there's only ever going to be 21 million, right? And then, let's lose, 2 million or 2.5 million are lost forever, right? So what does that leave? That leaves like 19, let's just call that roughly 19 million Bitcoin that are actually going to be in circulation at some point, right? Right now, I believe there's 17.5. So there's another 1.5 million Bitcoin to go that's going to be mined over the next, let's call it 100 years until they stop, until there's none left that they can even mine. And then the miners are just getting paid in transaction. So with that being said, right now, Bitcoin is disinflationary, meaning that less and less Bitcoins are being added to circulation. And then at some point, it will be fully deflationary, meaning no more Bitcoins are even being added to the network and to the circulation. So just that alone, that fact about the Bitcoin and the network, I think ultimately is what gives it so much credibility and so much power to continue to grow and to continue to be valuable.
Like you said, 21 million Bitcoin. We've never really had an asset like that before in human history. So it is quite the experiment we're going through right now. So when I look at the charts, when I look at the Bitcoin halving charts, to me, it just seems overwhelmingly obvious that, it's going to stay in these same patterns that it goes through over the past two halvings. On the same token, it's 11 years old. So, it's truly,
so you're looking at the stock to flow model.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thing about the stock to flow is at the end of the day, it's an economic model. Like it's not proven, right? Like there's so much I think right now that is uncertain. Like in the sense that this halving, at this point, Bitcoin's never been this popular. So it's never been traded this much by institutions, traders, hodlers, and so forth. So I see this at whatever price action the actual halving event will have could already be priced in. Whether there is the classic buy the rumors, sell the news, as you see all the time in the stock market, right? That could potentially happen where, there's a run up into the halving and the price increases and then drops dramatically post halving. But then what actually is happening from the halving with the miners is going to be interesting, because over time, that's really what should technically, play out with the stock to flow, which is just the fact that there's going to be less Bitcoins being put into the circulation. A lot of the miners that, are relying on using the old equipment, the old rigs, and they're paying higher electricity costs are going to have to switch off, meaning that the miners that are left running the network will be rewarded with more Bitcoin and therefore will be more profitable and will have less reason to actually need to sell that Bitcoin to pay their operating costs, to pay their electricity, pay for equipment, pay the ongoing to service their debt and so forth. So that based off that is what can tend to spark that more bullish case for Bitcoin. And I think we've seen that in the past. And I think that is a possible outcome here coming out of the halving, whereas a lot of just going into this halving is pure speculation. I think that, I don't know for sure, but I think there's a good chance that the halving is priced in. But at the same time, there's other factors at play here, like with COVID-19. Like a lot of the technical traders that I've been, keeping up with have said that Bitcoin right now, after that 50% dump day on March 13th, I believe, is oversold, right? So, so there's other factors I think really that are at play when it comes to the Bitcoin price, other than just the upcoming halving.
Right, but when you cut the supply completely in half, that's got to be a more contributing factor than any other human social factor, I would think. So, me personally,
you have three buckets, right? You have the hodlers, guys like you and me who are holding our Bitcoin long term. Like I saw a stat the other day, like the most amount of Bitcoin wallets with one Bitcoin like hit an all-time high, right? After the sell-off, right? So you have the hodlers who just keep holding, guys like us, and clients of Bitbuy and so forth, right? Then you have the miners who, are dumping their Bitcoin on exchanges to be able to cover their costs, right? And they're the most deep into this, right? Because for them, it's like minimum 5 years. Like they spend all this capital expenditures just to get up and running and to pay for all this, right? So they're the most committed. Like guys like us, we can sell our Bitcoin for cash tomorrow, right? And go back, right? Not that we would, but That's an
Yeah.
option, right? Where they can't just go around and say, oh, we're just going to sell everything off right away, and there's people lining up to buy it. It's not the case. So you have the miners, you have the hodlers, and then you have, of course, traders, the institutions and the trading desks and all the technical guys, right? And who are shorting and doing all types of other stuff, whether it's contract or difference and so forth. So I think the two parties that are really affecting the price are the traders and the miners, right? Now, if you take one element back from that, which is the mining companies selling less Bitcoin post halving because they're more profitable, and a lot of these miners are turning off just because they can't be profitable, and the ones that remain are more profitable, then I think there's a very bullish case there to say, well, there's just simple supply demand economics. Your supply now that you have on the market is just going down, and so it drives up demand and can drive up price.
We're getting quite near the halving. I think we got to be like 35 days out or something like that.
Yeah, I think I posted yesterday on Twitter. It's like we're like 40 days out, but I think that my understanding is it's not exact. It's not an exact date. It's on the block, right? So it's
right.
When that block is mined. So it could be like within a window of a couple of days. But I think probably now they've nailed it down. I'm not quite sure.
Right. Based on approximate 10-minute blocks, right?
Right.
So switching gears a little bit, going on to security. Obviously, security is a big issue with cryptocurrency, and people are notorious for losing their funds in the space. So I wanted to ask, what is Bitbuy's approach to security? How do you go about securing your customers' assets, and what do you recommend to your users?
Yeah, that's a great question. So why don't we start with users first? So when you create an account on Bitbuy, you sign up, you create your password and so forth, right? So first simple thing is like use a password that's like you haven't used on any other site. There's some really good password generators that I recommend, like for example, LastPass is a great one, right? Where essentially can generate you a password and save it for you, and then you have a master password to access it. That way, if, for example, one of your accounts on another site was compromised and that password was leaked, and then now a hacker is trying to multiple sites with that password and that user info, like they're not going to be able to get into your Bitbuy account. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah,
so that's like
that makes sense.
That's basic, right? Like, but at the same time, like a lot of people just aren't aware of that. So use a password that you haven't used before. That's follow. We have a sort of a guideline of what you should use. Like you've seen on sites like one capital, one sign, and so forth, right? So do that. And then once you do that, we require all our clients to use SMS verification once they've entered in their password and username. But what I do recommend is after you set your account up and you've gone through the KYC verification, that you then activate Google Authenticator instead of just relying on the SMS verification, because this goes for all exchanges and all online accounts that offer Google Authenticator or another type of authentication system other than SMS. Because if you were SIM swapped, where a hacker, pretended to be you and got access to your SIM card, then technically, and they had your password, then technically they could get into your account, right? So with Google Authenticator, that's not the case.
Okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. The more added layers of security, definitely the better.
So just to summarize, strong password, Google Authenticator, those are two great ways to secure your account from the user side at Bitbuy. So let's get into now what we're doing at Bitbuy to protect client assets. And so obviously at this point, we've transacted hundreds of millions of dollars. Our clients have transacted on our platform. We've been doing this since 2016, and we've built up a strong user base here in Canada. And I like to think that we have a very strong, if not the strongest, brand reputation of any crypto exchange in Canada. And we work really hard to maintain that. So what are we doing? So first thing is we're using BitGo. So for those that don't know, BitGo is a third-party custodian out of the States that essentially is an industry leader when it comes to crypto custody. So we've integrated them with our exchange, and they have a assurance policy, $100 million from Lloyd's out of London on those assets. So that's one thing we're doing on the cryptocurrency side. On the banking side, we're using CDIC insured banks. And then in addition to that, we're keeping 90 to 95% of any client's assets that are stored within Bitbuy in cold storage, meaning they're not in hot wallets that are used for operational purposes at Bitbuy. One thing we did about a year ago now, actually under a year ago, and we will do this annually, is we did a proof of solvency audit with Cypherblade out of Washington, and their blockchain investigation company. We had them come up and essentially audit our exchange practices, our cold asset segregation methods, our one-to-one backing of client assets, right? Like this was a big thing after what happened with Quadriga. We put that, it's a 20-page report. You can find it under our press page. It's public for anybody to read. What we do that sets us apart on that side.
Well, it sounds like you're taking great measures to ensure people can feel safe holding their cryptocurrency on the Bitbuy exchange, because I know a lot of new users coming into this space don't actually go through the trouble of purchasing a cold storage wallet and doing it themselves. So just to clarify a couple of things, so you say you're keeping 90 to 95% of your customers' assets in cold storage. Those are stored with BitGo?
Yeah, so those are in cold storage through multiple vendors, one of them being BitGo.
You mentioned Quadriga. I actually have had friends use Quadriga. They used it and they've actually cashed out successfully. You were obviously operational during that incident. How did that affect you as being, I guess, a competitor?
It was really a stain on our entire industry, and it was horrible to see so many people lose so much money. So, with that being said, we did everything to learn from that and to make sure that nothing like that would ever happen to us. And that I think really just kind of comes down to who's involved in your business, and how you operate your business, what kind of policies and procedures you have in place, and making sure that, you have proper treasury, proper banking relationships, all the key things that any traditional financial institution would need to operate to a level where nothing like that could ever happen.
I think one of the main issues with Quadriga was that one sole person had access to the private keys. Can you ensure Bitbuy users that's not the case here?
One of the things you can actually check for in that proof of solvency and security audit that you can find on our press page is that we have basically multiple director access to basically those private keys and so forth. And so we put in redundancy policies. Like let's say, we were all on a plane and it crashed, God forbid, right? Like we have redundancy policies put in place and how funds would probably be accessed and be distributed to users. So we've thought of all those possible scenarios, including even like terrorist attacks and nuclear war.
Very good to know. Now, right now, if I'm not mistaken, if I didn't write this down wrong, you guys offer for purchasing Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, EOS, DAI, Bitcoin Cash, Stellar Lumens, and Ripple. I'm not sure if you can release any more information about it or not, but does Bitbuy have any plans to add additional assets to the platform in 2020?
Yeah, so we do, definitely. We're not sharing what those assets are, but we definitely have plans to continue to add new assets and to continue to improve the platform. We actually just rolled out today an update to our iOS and Android apps so that users can receive all types of push notifications regarding filled trades. Like if you set a limit order filled orders, so if you set a limit order, you get notification pushed to your app. You can toggle those on and off for those when you get deposits credited, and a whole slew of other things as well.
One thing I wanted to ask you was your thoughts on the method of purchasing through Bitcoin ATMs. I see a lot of Bitcoin, well, not a lot, but there's a few Bitcoin ATMs that have popped up around in the Niagara region down here. I don't really use, they mark up quite a bit, but one thing that's different about them is that you don't have to put in any of your personal information, which I find sort of strange. But I mean, that's obviously valuable to some people. I just want to get your thoughts on the Bitcoin ATM businesses.
Yeah, for sure. I think honestly, I understand the convenience. Just like walking in somewhere, bringing some cash, putting it in, getting Bitcoin sent to your wallet, or vice versa, right? Like I understand that whole convenience, and like it's like online shopping versus like we're like more of an online retailer versus like, you know, in-person shopping, right? Where you want to go to the grocery, where you want to go buy it in person. So I think like that's a good comparison. I think the fact that you can do it without going through a KYC process is like going to be very short-lived. I think that eventually they are going to be transitioning to a model where they will be still taking personal information, taking a photo of your ID, like from the actual machines, because the machines are built, a lot of them are built with cameras already embedded in them. And so as the industry continues to develop, I think that that's a model we're moving closer to. But I can't, you know, say that. I say that with a grain of salt because I'm not involved in the BTM business directly. So, you know, with that will be seen when it happens.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I don't see it being a long-lived thing without having the KYC. I mean, just the way things are developing quite quickly.
Yeah. And from my understanding, you know, a lot of those machines, like there's just, like I don't really want to make this inference because I'm not like for sure, but I know that a lot of times, you know, with cash, it's simply, you know, there's potential illicit use purposes, right?
Yeah.
Where there's reasons why people don't want companies to know who they are and sort of why they're changing their cash into Bitcoin or back forth, you know, beyond the libertarian principles.
Now, you're obviously not, I don't take it that you're a Bitcoin maximalist of any sort. So I wanted to ask, what features of a blockchain or cryptocurrency are most attractive to you personally?
To be completely honest, I definitely don't not consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist in the sense that I'm really bullish on Bitcoin, and I think it's just remarkable what Satoshi or that group was able to create and launch back in 2009. So I really like Bitcoin, and I love all of its features and the way it was designed. I think it's incredible. But, you know, I obviously am not a huge fan of slow transaction times, like for real use cases. Like I like blockchains that can confirm transactions quicker. I like how ETH was able to add functionality around smart contracts and sort of create blockchains within blockchains, and I think that's incredible. And I think there's a lot more use cases for the blockchain, and that blockchain, just like Mark Andreessen wrote in his post all those years ago, is software is eating the world. I think blockchain as a sort of that next layer of software will eat the world also.
Now, do you think blockchain can be used in endless use cases, or do you think there's going to be a limited number of big blockchains, sort of like we have a limited number of main websites that we use?
Yeah, I think that blockchain use cases are going to excel and shine in the financial world as they have so far to a certain extent, and will continue to grow. And you see it now with central banks looking at digital dollars and, you know, SWIFT networks that, you know, that are used for wire transfers, looking at more efficient ways to confirm and speed up transactions, you know. And so I think that, you know, ability to confirm transactions quickly without relying on, you know, a third party to do so is part of, you know, what makes the blockchain technology so revolutionary, and what will continue to allow it to grow and shine within the financial industry specifically. And I'm sure like it'll make its way into other industries. Like I've been hearing the use cases for years, whether it's a shipping industry or other cool use cases where it's been integrated within, you know, digital advertising and so forth. So I'm really excited about the future of blockchain beyond just digital currencies and what it has in store for us all.
I am too. Particularly, I'm interested in the decentralization aspect of it, and I just find decentralization is just such a progressive take on anything that you do. Things become more corrupt over time as power goes into smaller hands, and I think that's kind of the epitome of the society we're in right now. So, like you said, I'm super excited to see where blockchain takes us. You guys have a really, I think, generous referral program on Bitbuy. Did you want to tell my listeners about the referral program that Bitbuy offers?
Yeah, definitely. So once you sign up and get verified on Bitbuy, in your settings page, you'll be given a link. It's like a custom link unique to your account. You can share that with your friends. It's embedded, so you can tweet it out. You can share it on Facebook or just directly email it to somebody. And basically, once your friend signs up and transacts $100 or greater, we'll give you and your friend both $20.
Awesome. And is there anything left that you would like to say, or if not, maybe let the users know where to find you on social media?
Yeah, definitely follow me on Twitter. It's Jordan_Ben with a 0 instead of an O. And I share a lot of thoughts and opinions on there. They're not all my own. And yeah, check out bitbuy.ca. Like if you go to the bottom of the page and you see all our different pages there, whether it's our resources section, we have tons of great guides for people just starting out, wanting to learn about Bitcoin. We just actually released our halving guide. So that's an awesome piece of writing there for people who just want to learn more about the halving, what's going on in the network, how to, what kind of wallets are out there, how to store, send digital currency, what the value of Bitcoin is. We compare Bitcoin to gold. We have different pages that you track prices on. There's press pages about us. You can find our proof of reserve and security audit on there. So check that all out. And, if you already are an existing Bitbuy user, just want to say thank you for supporting the project. We're in this for sort of the long haul, and we're really excited to see where this industry is going to go. And I think it's really kind of been time to shine with everything that's happening in traditional markets. I think that, Bitcoin sort of isn't uniquely positioned to be that hedge to a lot of those traditional fears and so forth. So it's a really exciting time for, I think, everybody involved in this space to see what's going to happen next. So thanks to all the supporters of Bitbuy so far, including yourself, Brad. So we really appreciate you and all the other clients that we have.
Well, I can definitely vouch for your platform. It's very simple to use. Definitely, I was using Coinbase before. I would say it's definitely competitive, similar nature when in terms of the user interface. Everything's been worked really quick for me. You guys have been great whenever I needed help. So I do thank you for that. And I'll definitely put all the links that you were speaking of in the show notes for everybody.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for having me, Brad. Keep up the good work, man, and keep spreading the good word of Bitcoin here.
You too, man. I'll stay in touch.
Okay, cheers, man.
Thank you all for listening to episode 22 of the Halving Report with myself, Brad Mines Crypto, and with Jordan Anderson, the COO of Bitbuy.ca. Do me a favor, click that like and subscribe button, and definitely check out all the links in the show notes.